Hey, what's up, everybody? And thank you for listening to Operation Agency Freedom, where we are bringing you top secret advice from the world's badass digital agency owners. These amazing men and women are sharing their stories of how they have built 6, 7, and 8-figure digital agencies and how you can too. My name, of course, is Chris Martinez. I am the CEO of Dude, where we help digital agencies by giving them the people and the processes so that they can take on more projects and scale profitably. And if you are looking for something new to read, I highly recommend that you go to Amazon and you pick up my new book, Never Wear Pants Again, where I tell you about how to build a remote agency and how to create the great processes that'll empower you to build an agency completely remote.
Okay, hold on, wait. I've got a logo that's got a bunch of butts on it. You've got a book about not wearing pants.
This is a match made in heaven. Yes, this is the interview. This is like, the stars are aligning stuff today. So yeah, without further ado, I've got Jeff Miller here. He is the owner of Cool Beans Digital, as well as the Ass Fam.
Yeah.
I found him through that. So welcome to the show, Jeff. Very, very excited to have you on today.
Super psyched to be here. That's so funny. For everyone listening, I had no idea that you had a book called Never Wear Pants Again.
I should have warned you about that prior to Joe.
Absolutely love it.
Well, I'll get you a copy for sure, Jeff, so you can check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. We're going to get all into your story in a second, but as normal, we always start off with our roundtable discussion.
Yep.
And I am very excited because I think a few people know this, not a lot of people know this, but before I started running my agency full-time way back in I went full-time with it in 2013. Mm-hmm. My last job was working for a newspaper. I was the digital advertising sales manager at the newspaper. They eventually had to lay me off because the print ads, it was down the toilet, and I was in, so first to go. And you have a history working in print.
I do.
Well, so let's hear that story.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know this part of my life. They really view me as like, I worked at Intel, Ericsson, got the MBA, consulting, all that stuff. They don't really know like what happened beforehand, right? And so my dad actually runs a newspaper company. And by newspaper company, I mean he would buy newspapers and sell newspapers in the 70s, the 80s, early 90s. Had a great time. That was his up and up, right? Like for him, newspapers was like this, the same way we're experiencing Facebook like this. And he absolutely loved it because like he loved being in the middle of like all the huff and puff and all the drama and all the politics, and to write stories and sell ads. And like it was really, really cool seeing him build a business. And as such is life, like newspapers go down, right? Yeah. I cut my teeth on that, right? Like degreasing press machines, right? Having to sell a $500 13 times in 6 months type newspaper advertising agreement, right? And if you could sell that, you could sell anything on Facebook, right? It was super frustrating, super challenging because nobody ever believed me. Nobody would ever like buy into me. You'd have to prove yourself again and again and again. And when you're selling newspapers, you're going to people.
Right.
You're trying to push your stuff. Just like, hey, you should buy my stuff. And that would be like me going, hey, random person on the internet, like, hey, buy my book, right? Like that's not how this is like socially acceptable anymore, right? Like you really got to have ads do that, right?
Yes.
And I realized pretty quickly, like if I could create an ad that was so good, it would get somebody a paying customer, I wouldn't have to worry about shoving my stuff into people's faces ever again, right? That was like an idea in my head. And I remember sitting down like in my dad's conference room with a blank piece of paper, and the client was like writing an ad for me. And I was like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do, right? I was like, what does that mean? Just pay me money and someone else to do it. He's like, no, I want you to write an ad. Or like, that was like them trying to like prove my worth, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I got started on like the copywriting journey. That's why I got started on the advertising journey. That's like right around the time when like Mad Men was coming out. I was like, oh my God, that's what it's going to be like, right? And I ultimately didn't take that path, by the way. I didn't go like full on ad guy. Instead, I took the safer path. Like I got a graduate degree because I graduated in the middle of the recession, so everybody just went back to school. I was at University of Chicago for a summer scholarship program, MBA at WashU. I worked at Intel, worked at Ericsson. And then after experiencing like the third layoff in 9 months from a supposedly like safe Fortune 500 company built like 401ks or retirement plans, which I think are like the biggest lie like ever since whatever, right? I was like, all right, I got to revisit some skill sets. And then I started selling websites and I was like, oh yeah, I remember how to do ads. And I started betting on myself, investing in myself, buying courses and cutting my teeth. And at one point with Cool Beans Digital, we had 3 paying clients. Each was paying me $10,000 a month just to talk to me about how to write ads, how to audit their business, pulling in my education from the MBA program, like how to create offers. And I was like, holy crap, this is like darn cool. Of course, everything went to shit. Like that's like the theme with this like US economy, like it keeps doing this, right?
Yeah.
And so we've had to rebuild like in the past 6 months or so, but it's still a damn cool journey. But actually like very few people know. I think it's still on my Facebook profile, but nobody ever asked, like I worked at a newspaper company. And in fact, my office, which is not here, like my actual office is in the back half of a newspaper company.
Dude, that's
like,
freaking awesome.
I still walk through like newspapers from like A Man on the Moon and like old ads. And it's pretty funny, by the way, like bringing your clients in through like an old newspaper office. They're like, look at that, look at that. I was like, yeah, that stuff doesn't work anymore. Come look at the good stuff in the back, right? And so it's a pretty cool journey. So yeah.
Well, okay. So I started working it was my hometown newspaper, and I grew up in LA. So it had a decent circulation at one point in time. You know, I started working there in 2011, I think.
Yeah.
So, you know, the newspaper, it was down, but it wasn't like flatlining the way that it is now. But prior to that, you know, you got the old dogs that were in there since the 70s, and they were waiting for a pension basically.
Yeah.
When the newspaper was the only thing in town, they never really had to sell. You know,
Yep.
they were just picking up the phone and closing deals. You know, I met a gal who worked at the San Francisco Chronicle. She started, I think she was making 300 grand her first year, and she had an assistant.
Yep.
That was nuts. And then she had to
Yep.
move on because obviously that money dried up.
Yep.
But you know, the newspaper industry, it changed very, very quickly. So how big was the circulation for your?
So at his height, my dad had 15 separate newspapers, and they weren't like massive, like huge citywide.
Were they dailies or were they weeklies?
They were weeklies and monthlies, and
Okay.
they were like small cities. So
Okay.
like a population like 15, 20,000, you know, like you got like a city within a city type of thing,
Right,
like the
right.
towns. So, and he loved that stuff so much. And he built a business with his brother and his dad. It was like a whole, like a family expression of like tribe and like hunting and let's go provide for ourselves. It was like a cool family group. And I was watching that, I was like, but guys, why don't you just put an ad on the internet and get your phone to ring? They're like, nah, let's do this instead. I was like, okay, well, I'll do my own thing, see in a bit. And what's interesting is like when you talk about like family business, like there's always this element, I'm building it for my son, like this type of like familial type thing. And I understand that. And I've always looked at like my Facebook ad agency and my journey is just a natural progression. Like that was something that like my dad and I would always have these like structured fights or like disagreements over. You want to take over the newspaper? I was like, I'm taking over my version of the newspaper. Like I've got a circulation of like 60,000 people, right? Like every time I write an article, which is my lunch and learn, there's 3,000 people watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Like now I can literally broadcast my message to across the United States, and my serviceable zone is no longer 20 miles, but instead is the top 20 countries. And so that has like really like changed how he's doing. And what we were supposed to have this year is AskCon. Like we were supposed to have like the agency scaling secrets convention. I know there's going to be assless chaps. It's going to be a whole thing. Like 500 people were like signed up, ready to go. We're going to rent the back half of for the summer and put people in dorms. And now I was going to be like, yo, dad, I told you I could do this, right? Because I've been like trying to prove it for like 3-4 years, even though I know that it's working. Something to like get your father to be like, good job, right? Because I'm Jewish, but I'm not a doctor or lawyer or accountant. So there's no like, you know, come on, Jeff, like type feeling. I think you know what I mean when I say that, right? Like
I do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm half Asian, so it's either doctor, lawyer, or failure.
Yeah, right. Like pick your battle. Like, okay, great. I guess I'll not be one of those top two. And then real estate is in there as well, right? But I genuinely like the Facebook ad agency model and providing services at scale is like the single best thing you can do. Like we're taking on, and I can't share my niche, but my done for you side, like we do Facebook ads for clients. Like we brought in 2 clients last week. They're jumping up and down. We got 2 more coming on this week. They're paying an F ton of money. They're super happy. We've got a coaching program with our done for you. So like our clients can ask our board of advisors questions, which is why people stay on board. And like that model, that way of working is so damn cool. It feels like I'm running my own university. And so it's a darn cool journey. And we were supposed to have AskCon and do like a huge meetup, but somebody coughed and then we can't do that anymore, but it's fun. You know?
It'll happen eventually. So you have AskCon, I have Dude Fest.
Dude Fest.
So I wasn't able to do Dude Fest this year, unfortunately.
That is so fucking funny.
So okay, so let's go back in time. So you're at the newspaper, and then what is the turning point now that we're getting into your agency story?
Yeah.
What is the turning point where you're like, I have an agency? Was there a client that you picked up, or what happened?
Yo, great question. So like before I had that moment of like, oh my God, this is real. I worked at a company called Ericsson in Dallas, Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was the Lean Six Sigma guy, sales and operations. I understood everything but fulfillment. Like once the check was signed, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do it. You know, like you had like the engineers and manufacturing, right?
Right.
And so I remember they were like, yo, like this company is doing great. Like, you know, there's competitive pressure. Everything is amazing. And you turn on Bloomberg and the financial consultants are like, this company's going bankrupt. And you're like, didn't the CEO but like, you're super confused. And I remember within the first 9 months, they had fired 1,000 people 3 times over. They had walked me out and then be like, just kidding, we're transferring you. We don't want to pay out your golden parachute. I was like, oh my God, is this how companies are supposed to work? I thought this was my forever company. Like what a sack of crap this is. And it was just, everybody's flustered and pissed and angry for no reason. And by the third go around, I was like, I'm done. That's it. I'm finished. I remember moving back home at like 31. Mm-hmm. No car, no girlfriend, no apartment, no job. Last $1,000 in the bank. That was like rock bottom. And the cool part about rock bottom is everybody's supposed to hit it. If you don't hit it, you freak out. Like you don't feel like you have the skills. And it's the same reason, like you don't have to worry about going hungry if you know how to hunt. But if you never had to hunt, you're always worried about going hungry. And that was my moment, right? Rock bottom. I'm in my parents' bedroom. I'm 31, as big of an L as you can possibly imagine. Not only am I not a doctor, lawyer, accountant, but I moved back home. Like, come on, right? And so I'm sitting there in my laptop trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I started seeing ads on Facebook on how to run ads on Facebook. And I was like, all right, you got my attention. Let's see what happens. It took like 2 months for me to finally cough up the last 997 that I had, right?
Do you remember who it was?
It was Dan Henry's. It was Facebook Ads for Entrepreneurs. Yeah. And he gets all the credit in the world. I think. Yeah, he's based out of like the St. Petersburg, Tampa area. And he and I aren't like best friends, but I give him credit. Like he was the kickstart, right? He proved to my brain, like, and his whole angle was like, guys, if I can do it, you can do it. And I was like, all right, if this pizza boy can do it, I can do it, right? And that really worked. And I don't mean that disingenuously. That was his angle for his webinar, right? And like, I did it. I was like, all right, fine, let's go. And what's interesting is like when you're forced to man up, the first thing that happens is like you worry about what's going wrong. Like the first time you go hunting, you're like, oh my God, but what about this and what about that? You try to over prepare and do everything right so it's completely perfect. That's not how business works nowadays. That's your grandfather's economy. Now it's all about getting customers, making an offer, getting them result. That's it. Bare minimum, like minimum viable type stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That's how companies shoot through the roof, right? Like the Tesla Model 3 is not the first Tesla. And to answer your question, that moment of like, oh my God, this could work, is I put out a curious student or a call for clients on my personal profile. This was like, I'm coming out, like I'm a Facebook ads guy now, right? Type feeling. Mm-hmm. And one of my best friends is a chiropractor down the street. He was like, yeah, I'm game. I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay, let's go. And I remember following the videos. Like I had like 2 tabs open. I was like, click that, click that, click that. Click. And I was so afraid of doing it wrong. I rebuilt it 4 times and I turned it on and I turned it off. And I was like, I don't know if I could spend the $10 a day. I'm freaking out. And I was like, all right, but you pay for the ad spend. I'm not going to do it myself. He's like, yeah, I don't care. And we ran so many tests. And I was like, all right, I got nothing else to lose. I might as well. I'm like at wit's end here. Like I'm trying to get my job back or any job. I'm trying to win approval from my parents, just be good enough. I was like, screw it, turn it on. And then within like 30 minutes, I got a text message saying somebody filled out the form, name, number, name. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Holy shit. It's like the machine worked and you're like, it's the first time you turn on the car. You're like, oh my God. Oh my God. Right. And then the first person who filled it out was the wrong fucking number. And I was like, oh, back to 0 again. Right. But then 2 hours later, another person filled out the form. And then 2 hours later, another person filled out the form. And then a week later, I called my friend who runs a chiropractic company. He's like, hey, how'd it go? He's like, yeah, I think somebody came in. They said they saw the ad and they bought stuff. I was like, oh my God. That was where my brain had built that experience in the story of I was no longer a failure. That was the first time like the neurons connected, like, holy shit, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think most people forget that part. Like most people try to spend so much time in the books because that's how they were taught. They forget you're supposed to go out, you're supposed to go hunt. You're supposed to fail, you're supposed to figure it out. And then one day you get that eureka moment and all of a sudden it happened. And that's when I realized, oh my God, I could do this. So to answer your question, it was the first time, it was within 7 days of launching the ad. Amidst all the freaking out, I called my first client, which was one of my best friends. And he was like, man, I think somebody saw the ad and bought. And I was like, that's it. Like, I'm never going back.
Perfect.
Like, that is it. And since then, it's been a really cool journey of like, you know, ups and downs and stuff like that. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the best things is that you now have a skill that you can rely on no matter what. And I think you kind of alluded to this. You know, a lot of people in this industry got hit hard in COVID. We had some of our agencies that went out of business literally like overnight in March, and we took a pretty big hit in March as well. But you know, you had that skill to be able to rely on. So, you know, this year, tell us about some of the things that you've experienced in your agency and some of the reinvention that you're doing with yourself.
Yeah, it's like if you know how to go hunting, you never have to worry about being hungry, right? And most people forget how to hunt. And as somebody who sits in a chair in front of 60,000 people, you know, doing a Wednesday lunch and learn a Friday interview, it's really important that, like, I mean, you're going to be held accountable. 60,000 people are going to yell at you, right? Like, I can't run around town saying, do an agency without actually doing the doing part myself. Like, nobody buys from a fat personal trainer, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, like, when we were doing 30K a month, it was just me. I was like, yo, I'm getting like 8 to 10K a month per client. I'm done. Right? Like doing 2 or 3 hours of work a day, playing Hearthstone on the side, let's boogie, right? And then March comes in and all the car washes are like, yo, we're out. And we had like 15 of them. That we had 4 bike shops that are like, yo, we're out. We had a bunch of side gig agency clients with huge orders. They're like, we're out. And I was like, oh, so this is what it feels like. Great. Fucking perfect. Everybody just leave. Why not? I don't even want to bother sending invoices anymore. And we went from $30,000 a month, like consistent, and just me and maybe one other person to zero all over again. I was like, well, it's time to learn how to go hunting. And the biggest fear is that, like, your skills aren't good enough, like you're rusty. And the only way to beat, I don't know if you do jujitsu, but mat rust is a thing.
I do jujitsu, actually.
Yeah, dude, I think you and I are best friends, right? So like when I was in Portland, I was doing jujitsu. You could take like 2 weeks off. And you're like, why am I so slow and everything hurts? And you have to like redo
The
it.
pain, the soreness. Because
you're like,
I don't know how old you are. I'm 40. So, but my mind is still 25, right? But it's like the next day I am definitely 40.
yeah. It's like, I didn't know these joints could feel that way. Like, that's so strange. Like your fingers curl when they should. Either way though, like the only way to beat mat rust is by being on the mat.
Exactly.
No other way, right? You can't study your way out of that. And I was like, all right, so let's beat that mat rust. Let's go to market. And so I did what was in my program. I just did it. It's like, great. So let's meet and greet people. Can't do that. Where does my church hang out? Like, if you're selling crosses, go to church. Where are they? They're online. Cool. How do I get in front of them? That's it. Let's write an ad. Let's get them calling my business. Cool. We talk to them on the phone. Hey, Mr. Johnson, you know, I'm super psyched that you're calling me, but based upon this qualifying conversation, I don't think we're a really good fit. But if you know any other ex-businesses that want this result, be sure to let me know. I'd be happy to pay you for your time. Right. And then we had that conversation again and again and again. And by the 5th or 6th phone call, I had talked to somebody that was a good fit. I said, you know, it sounds like we should do business with each other. Can I show you how my program works? How much it costs when you want to get started? And in 6 weeks, I myself had gone from $0 to $10,000 a month. Cool. Right. Secretly, I realized I hate all these people. This is an industry I do not want to be in, and the worst thing in the world. So you know what I did? I went hunting again.
Yeah.
And we started targeting different types of clients, different types of customers. I ended up finding my business partner, and she just recently moved to Denver. And you know what? We're landing $3,000 a month retainers.
Right.
And the clients are getting results. And when they don't, we know what's going on, which is like their front desk, or we can audit it. And like, we've got like 3 or 4 people working with us now. And like, we brought on like 44 clients at $3K a month each. Now, not everybody sticks around. That doesn't mean 7 figures overnight. But if you look at our roles, we've got about 22 clients paying us actively $3,000 a month for a business that did not exist 6 months ago.
Right.
And I'm like, that means we're like a smidge away from a 7-figure run rate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, that's fucking awesome. In the middle of Corona.
In what we're looking at, like 7 months time.
That's a little bit more info about that. I think I lost Chris.
Oh,
there we go.
What happened? Can you hear me?
Yeah. But that's that's like my agency journey. Like the overall thinking is like, learn how to go hunting. The only way to get rid of rust is by doing the doing. And if you're selling crosses, go to a church. Like, I think most people are sitting in their chair, like in their house going like, why isn't this computer paying you money? I'm like, because computers don't pay you money. Go talk to a person. They have money. See what you can do for them in exchange for money. And then magically people will pay you. Like we've got salespeople now. I'm like, that's fucking cool. So,
yeah, that's awesome, man. And you did this in what, like 7 months time? 7
yeah.
months?
So like March is when I started the second version of our agency where I was like, I don't want to deal with these people anymore. And I would say like, what is it? Like maybe May, June, July, August. Yeah. May or so. I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this differently. And, I ended up paying a lot of people a lot of time, effort, energy for their mentorship. And they help solve a lot of problems, which allows us to take on more clients consistently. But yeah, it's been about 6 months or so. And I would say within 7 to 8, maybe the 9th month, we'll be at consistently over like that 7-figure run rate. And it's pretty cool because when you know how to do that, you'll never be hungry again. You'll never be poor again. It's literally $1 million skill set. Like if you know how to generate interest and demand in a marketplace, I mean, that's all Jeff Bezos does. It's like, yeah, I know how to generate interest. You look at like Kanye West, who yells at Joe Rogan for 4 hours, they make more money, right? They know how to generate interest and demand, right? Like if you know how to do that, you'll never be anything less than rich ever again.
So what would you say is the biggest lesson? And I'm talking, I want you to go like super specific. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned over the past 7 months that you didn't know prior to coronavirus?
Yeah. So here's what's interesting, right? Everyone thinks that they have to be an absolute expert in the industry and niche that they serve, which I get, I understand. Like you got to be the person that everybody comes to and you have to know their business better than yours. But look, I'm 35, right? My clients are in their 60s. If I go in and say I'm an expert, you know what they're going to say? You can GTFO and take your briefcase with you, right? Much less this like kid in a basement with like a computer and an internet saying, hey, I'm the expert in whatever your niche is. And me trying to be up here always meant that they were trying to tear me down. But if I come down here, they're going to help build me up. I just assumed that was like human nature. It's just like a law that I wrote down. And so the way I serve my clients isn't by trying to say like, I'm the absolute expert in gyms, chiropractor, dentist, plumbers, bankruptcy cases, selling plants, whatever. So I say, look, Mr. Johnson, if I was an expert in your business, you know what I'd be doing? Your business. If you were an absolute expert in customer generation, you'd be an overnight millionaire, just like Jeff Bezos. So how about this? How about I don't try to huff and puff you? I don't try to be the highest paid person's opinion. I don't try to be that madman. Instead, I'm just going to show you a plan on how we can run customer research to figure out if people want to buy what you have to sell. If we get a critical mass of people saying that they're interested in buying what you have to sell, we use that to create net. How about that? And all of a sudden they're doing what you're doing right here, which is like, okay, yeah, I'm listening, right?
You caught my attention.
Yeah, right? And all I do, and I give all the credit in the world to Ryan Levesque for the Ask method, ASK. You just have to write 5 questions to the right people. Needs, wants, fears, and goals, what they hate or what they tried. They'll give you the keys to the wallet. And we use that to do like really cool stuff. Like we'll take on a car wash in Savannah, Georgia. I don't know shit about car washes or Savannah, Georgia, right? Mr. Johnson, look, I know you saw our ad. And I know your market is more unique than everybody else, right? Everybody says that it's not true, but just agree with them, right? And I know everything is different. And if you go across the street and you cross I-74 or whatever it is, it's a totally different neighborhood, right? Look, I'm not trying to be the expert here. All I'm saying is I think I got a way to test and know if you should be running Facebook ads in the first place. It's going to cost you some cash. Ain't no other way around that. But we'll know within 1 week if the market is interested in buying, you have to sell. What do you say? They go, okay. I say, great. Here's a 997. We're going to set up a second call and things will be up and running 24 hours. We're going to set up a third call after that to review the stuff. And if I feel comfortable, if you feel comfortable, we're going to resume your Facebook ads campaign. How about it? Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So it's a low barrier offer, prove yourself, upsell them to the bigger monthly retainer. That's awesome, man.
That is like, it's an easy yes, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like, what does it take to be an Amazon customer? Like nothing. You get like $3, right? To get into the Apple ecosystem is $200 for an iPod. Easy yes, right? Imagine if Apple only had their $5,000 iMac Pro. It's not going to happen, right? And so I'll run into agencies that are like, yeah, we charge $2,000 a month. And I was like, great, I don't. I just want people coming into my world. Now we're launching like different offers and the competition is $2,250 a month. It's like, hey, all we ask is that you put down $250. It's a refundable deposit just to experience what our team is like. If you're comfortable by the third day, I'm going to apply it to the rest of your campaign. If not, you can get your money back. What do you say? bring on 18 clients in 2 weeks. And everybody's trying to squeeze for 2K. Come on, who do you think is going to win there? And so it's that type of process that allows us enough volume to figure out our kinks at a low risk reward type scenario. And it's pretty cool saying, I'm not the Facebook ads guy. I'm the customer research guy.
Yeah,
and there's a lot less people saying that.
Much better positioning for sure.
Yeah.
So we're almost out of time, believe it or not. This is going to be my last question for you is what is your team going to look like in the next 12 months? 12 months from today, what is your team going to look like?
I want to get to a point where we have 30 team members, 30, with like fair salaries, healthcare, stuff like that. To do that, we really got to hit like $300,000 to $400,000 a month. I'm going to get to a point where, and we're talking the done for you, not like the agency coaching program, the Ask Man type stuff. I mean, like my niche, what we do and how we do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have daily coaching calls where like one of our done for you clients can go in there, solve their problems. I want to have a board of advisors for our industry. So I don't have to be the expert. Like, go talk to that guy. He runs a whole bunch of locations. Ask him, and we pay him for his time. I want to have accountability coaches to where you get a call twice a week saying like, hey, did you do the doing part? I want to have trainers and educators. I want to have salespeople, things like that. And it's going to be really darn cool having a Slack meeting and you're like, guys, I don't even know half the people on here because we just hired you 2 weeks ago. So let's do some cool stuff together. So like in 12 months, I really want to get my done for you agency to $3 to $4 million a year. Awesome. And then ultimately do that whole process called built to sell.
Yeah.
And sell that stuff and have a good time. I think that's the best way to exit.
Love that book. I met John Warlow actually last year. I spoke at a duct tape marketing conference and he was there. Super nice guy. Much shorter than I thought he was going to be.
It's so funny. Like I went to ClickFunnels like pre-corona and everyone's like, Jeff, you're so high. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, I don't understand. They're like, oh, you mean because my camera angle's like this, so I look like a midget, right? And other people have their camera angle like this, so they look super tall. Yeah. And I'm like, man, you're 4'5". What are you doing? Like, what do you think you're doing? Like, it's like a huge height difference. And it's so funny meeting people in person. Like, the head never matches the body. You know what I mean? It's really darn cool.
You know who I met one time? So back when I was living in LA, I used to go to the UFC gym. It's basically like 24-hour fitness. And I was working out really late one night. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And everybody starts going nuts. And all these heads are turning towards the entrance. And Dana White walked in. And so I'm sure you know who Dana White is.
That bald boxer that turns into UFC.
So I was like, I got to go, take a picture with him. And I go, dude, he is very, very short. He's like 5'6".
Yeah.
And I'm 6 foot tall, and on TV he looks massive.
Yeah.
But it's because he's this wide when he's 5'6". It's like normal width. Then standing next to me, and I saw the picture after. I'm like, dude, I am twice the size of this guy. So pretty funny. But anyways, man. All right. So we are out of time. This has been an absolute pleasure. Great Appreciate interview. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So I have a Wednesday lunch and learn and a Friday interview every week. And the easiest thing to do is just go into Facebook and type in Facebook ads, agency scaling secrets. It's the only group with a bot on it, I hope. I've been saying that for a while, but I haven't really checked. And it's a pretty darn cool group of people. I'm in there super present, answering questions. And if you've got anything specific you want to ask, just tune in Wednesday at noon. I'll write your question on the screen and give you a great answer and send you on your way. So there you go.
Perfect. And then follow-up question to that, who would be the perfect person to get in contact with you today?
The perfect person that I want to get into contact with. Is that correct?
Well, the perfect person to get in contact with you, perfect person to reach out to you.
The person that wants to buy my $1 million Facebook ad agency. Yeah, that's the DM I'm looking for.
Nice.
Like, I want to build this thing to spec, just like a house. Like, you build a house, you fill it with some renters, and you sell it, right? You build a car knowing you're going to sell it. And I've never gone through the process of like selling a business. I think I can build one to spec if I know what they're looking for. Make sure the margins are there, the volume, the leadership team, all that stuff, and build that Warren Buffett moat around the business, and then sell a castle. So that's the message I'm looking for. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for being on the show today, Jeff. And for all of our listeners, thank you all for tuning in today, and make sure that you return next Thursday and every Thursday for the next episode of Operation Agency Freedom. Bye, guys.